Chosen one, something devastating is happening to the people who thought they outplayed you. By simply staying in your truth and moving forward, you just blew a hole in all of their fakeness. They're crashing about you on everyone. It's crazy. You are the reason their world is ending, and it's only getting better for you. There was a connection, a bond, a person or a situation that pulled you in and felt significant the moment it arrived. Not casually significant, not just emotionally heavy, but spiritually significant. Something in you recognized it before your mind could form an explanation. Something deep in your gut said, this matters, this is real, this is the kind of thing worth everything you have, and you gave it everything you had. That is who you are. When you decide something is real, you do not half-step, you pour, you invest, you bring the full weight of your love, your loyalty, and your genuine desire to see something flourish. You were not in that situation playing games, you were building something. And what was being built was not ordinary, not just on the surface, but at the foundation level. What existed between you and the person on the other side of this was not a casual connection. It was a contract, a divine assignment, the kind of bond that gets forged at a level above human convenience, where both people carry exactly what the other needs, and where moving together correctly unlocks blessings that are almost incomprehensible in scale. Doors that had been sealed were about to open, the kind of increase that does not just shift your circumstances, it shifts your entire trajectory. All of that was on the table, all of it was possible, all of it was right there within reach. Sacred things get attacked, not in spite of their importance, but because of it. The bigger the assignment, the more aggressive the opposition, and the opposition was already in position before you even fully understood what you had stepped into. It was watching, calculating, and it already had someone working from the inside. There was someone, or more than one person, positioned close to the individual you were in this contract with. These were not strangers on the outside looking in. These were insiders, people with access, people who had been trusted, included and protected by the very individual they were quietly working against, and they were working against it from the very beginning. Their issue was never with anything you did, their issue was with what you are. You walked in carrying something real, and these people had spent considerable time building their influence around someone who had learned to expect less. You arrived with genuine love, and genuine love disrupts the economy that emotional scarcity creates. You represented an elevated, growing, authentic version of life that would have made their entire operation irrelevant the moment it fully took hold. So they got to work, not loudly. The most effective liars never operate loudly. They plant seeds, a whisper placed at exactly the right moment of vulnerability, a concerned expression timed to land when doubt is already close to the surface. And I'm just saying, delivered with practiced casualness that hits harder than a direct accusation ever could. They study the person they are manipulating, learn the old wounds, the specific insecurities that respond to pressure, and then they apply pressure there carefully, consistently, and over time. The message was always some version of the same thing. You cannot trust what you are feeling. You cannot trust what you are seeing. The real threat is the one standing right in front of you, calling themselves genuine, over and over, patient, coordinated, because this was not one person operating alone. It was a circle of people with a shared goal and enough accumulated jealousy to sustain a long, deliberate campaign. Hold on to this. Every single person in that circle left a fingerprint. Truth is not passive, it is meticulous. It collects evidence in real time, and it was collecting the entire time this was happening. A fake circle does not look fake from inside it. That is the whole mechanism, and that is what makes it so effective. From the outside, you can sometimes sense the performance, but when someone has been embedded in a group of people who have built a shared act together over a long stretch of time, that performance starts to feel like culture. It develops its own language, its own rituals, and its own version of loyalty, not real loyalty, but the performance of loyalty, and after enough time has passed, the person inside it starts confusing the ritual for the real thing. The person at the center of this situation was fully inside that performance, and the performance had been running long enough that dismantling it would have required admitting how long they had been living inside something that was never actually protecting them. That kind of admission is painful. So instead of facing it, the performance continued. That entire circle was constructed around keeping one person exactly where they were, not growing, not questioning, not becoming more. Every time that person moved toward something genuine, toward you, toward the life this contract was pointing them at, the circle contracted around them. Someone supplied a reason to stay small. Someone reframed your presence as a threat rather than an upgrade. Someone made choosing you feel like a risk, and choosing the familiar feel like safety. Contraction disguised as protection, that is the signature move of a fake circle. If these words stirred your consciousness, hype this video to help more chosen ones awaken to this. You threatened that entire architecture simply by being authentic. Authenticity is incompatible with controlled environments. The longer you remained in the picture, the more pressure your realness put on the performance just by existing. So the circle made its move. It pushed you out rather than allow itself to expand. That decision signed its own death warrant. The moment you were removed from the equation, there was nothing left to hold the contradictions in that circle together. The fake bonds that had been sustained, partly by contrast with something real, immediately began to show their actual quality. What had looked like loyalty revealed itself as transaction. What had performed as love revealed itself as leverage. And the people who had held together long enough to run an operation against you are now running that same energy on each other. You did not cause that collapse. You were the last thing delaying it. This is the person who was supposed to step up, the person who had access to something genuinely transformative. You, the connection, the potential of everything that was being built, and who at the critical moment made the wrong call. Let us be precise about this rather than gentle. This person was not evil. Evil makes a clean villain. What this person was compromised. Compromised means they had the full capacity to choose correctly and consistently chose not to. That is not villainy, that is tragedy. This person had every tool available. The discernment was there. The internal signals were firing correctly. There were moments, and you may remember some of them, where you could see them almost get there, almost see through what was being constructed around them, almost choose the real thing. And each time they turned back, not because they could not see, because seeing was costly. Choosing you, choosing growth, choosing to walk towards something genuine, all of it came with a price. It meant confronting the people they had maintained out of habit and fear. It meant dismantling an identity they had been living inside long enough to mistake for their actual self. It meant standing in the open without the familiar crowd as a buffer, holding only something real. They were not ready to pay that price. And so they handed the power back, piece by piece, every time they dismissed what they were sensing, every time they chose the circle's opinion over their own knowing, every time they let fear make the decision that integrity was trying to make. And the circle caught everything they handed back and immediately used it. Here is what the universe was doing during all of this. It was sending previews, small disruptions, contained losses, minor collapses that were clearly communicating, adjust now while the adjustment is still manageable. These are the warnings that arrive before the full consequence, the whisper before the raised voice before the architecture changes entirely. Every single one was ignored. When you ignore the whisper, the lesson scales. When you ignore the scaled lesson, the full reckoning arrives. And the full reckoning is not a whisper, not a preview, not something that can be bargained with. It is the complete, comprehensive, undeniable version of everything that was coming, amplified by every ignored warning along the way. That reckoning is here now, and it brought everything with it. Chosen ones, they never expected this, and they really didn't expect us to keep talking. You've noticed it. Chosen one channels disappearing, videos pulled, voices scrubbed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, and now we have something they truly can't silence. The technology used to suppress consciousness has been reverse-engineered, and Destiny Engine is the result. What was once used against humanity is now your ascension weapon. Join Destiny Engine and you're supporting your favorite channels while leveling up yourself at the same time. It's a 360 win. You can now MK Ultra yourself into 5D superpowers. Destiny Engine bypasses the conscious mind and rewrites the source code directly. Reality bends faster. Synchronicities stack, your nervous system upgrades to a higher bandwidth. Put on headphones, press play, that's all. For $7 you switch sides of history. Click the link in the description. The takeover is internal. You need to understand the full scope of what was operating in the background during this entire period, because without it, you cannot fully grasp why you felt what you felt, the specific exhaustion, the particular drain that hit you, even on days when nothing visible had gone wrong. You were not imagining that. What you were sensing was real, and it was organized. There was jealousy operating at a level that went far beyond gossip and petty behavior. Someone in this situation looked at what you carry, your gifts, your light, your specific spiritual capacity, and instead of responding with respect, made a decision to interfere, not passively, actively. This person studied how you moved, catalogued what you responded to, and paid careful attention to where your investment lived, where you were most genuine and most open, because that is precisely where they intended to apply pressure. Think about the moments during this period where something felt deliberately aimed, not random disruption, but targeted disruption, where a specific piece of information surfaced at a moment that seemed engineered to destabilize you, where something you deeply cared about was suddenly under threat in a way that felt too precisely timed to be coincidence. You were not being paranoid. That was deliberate. Someone was running a specific operation built around the particular shape of what you carry and what matters most to you. It failed, not because the approach was unsophisticated, but because you are the wrong target for that kind of move. What you carry does not have the gap they were searching for. Your covering, your assignment, your spiritual depth, none of it is structured in a way that exposes the vulnerability they needed to exploit. They went looking for a crack and found a wall. And when they found the wall, they pushed harder, which is exactly what you experienced as escalating pressure, more chaos, more manufactured conflict, more attempts to make something stick against you. Nothing stuck. And the failure of every single attempt to penetrate what covers you has now become the documented evidence of exactly how far they were willing to go. That evidence is not sitting still somewhere waiting to be discovered. It is actively surfacing through people who were present and are now uncomfortable with what they witnessed, through patterns that have become visible now that the full timeline can finally be examined. And it is surfacing through the specific shape of the collapse happening in their lives right now, a collapse that mirrors the exact architecture of what they were doing, as if everything they sent outward is simply being returned. Everyone who contributed to that campaign is absorbing the return. Not one person who threw something at that wall is untouched by what it reflected back. Everything broke. Not slowly, not in a way that could be managed or spun or survived gracefully, but all at once. Structures break this way when they have been under pressure for too long, and the integrity was never real to begin with. Suddenly, completely, in a way that everyone in the vicinity can hear, the performances started failing simultaneously. That is exactly how it works when a grace period ends and a harvest arrives. Every seed that was planted comes up at the same time. The jealousy, the deception, the false testimony, the manufactured version of you that was sold to the person in the contract, all of it surfaced at once, refusing to be managed in sequence, demanding to be faced in its entirety. And the person at the center of this situation started seeing it, finally, without the ability to rationalize it away. The people they had chosen over you began revealing their actual nature with a clarity that could not be explained or excused. The accumulated weight of every ignored warning, every dismissed instinct, every moment of choosing wrong, all of it landed at the same time. That is a particular kind of devastation, an ego death that comes from every direction simultaneously with no comfortable position and no clean explanation available. When the life you chose in order to protect yourself starts exposing itself as the very thing you should have walked away from, and the thing you walked away from becomes the most obvious mistake of your life, there is nowhere comfortable to land. Truth was collecting evidence the entire time. All of that evidence is surfacing now, in conversations, in realizations, in confrontations between the people who coordinated the operation, once the operation stops being profitable for everyone involved, and in quiet moments when there is nothing left to distract from what is simply, undeniably true. The curtain came down, and everything behind it is visible. Stop. Before we go any further, this needs to be addressed directly. There is a version of this that positions you as someone who survived something, and while that is technically accurate, it is the wrong frame. It is not your energy, and it is not your identity in this picture. You are not the person who almost got taken down. You are the person they could not take down regardless of what they tried. That distinction matters enormously. One is a survivor, the other is a force, and you are the force. Consider what was deployed against you: a coordinated circle, multiple angles of attack, real effort, real resources, and real intention, directed specifically at dismantling what you carry and what you were building. And you are standing here with your gifts intact, your integrity unbroken, and your light not 1 degree dimmer than when this started. That is not luck. That is not resilience in the ordinary sense. That is power operating in a way that cannot be manufactured or faked. Real power does not announce itself, defend itself, or require an audience to validate it. It simply is. It keeps being, regardless of what is thrown at it, regardless of how many people agree that they are going to stop something that was ordained long before they developed an opinion about it. You walked into this situation carrying something they could not handle. You stayed longer than you needed to, because that is what integrity looks like. It does not quit at the first sign of difficulty. You poured into something real, even while the environment around it was being compromised from the outside. You did not lower your standard to match the chaos surrounding you. You did not become what they needed you to become in order to justify their treatment of you. So let us reframe the entire picture with the accuracy it deserves. Their operation did not hurt you and then get stopped. Their operation failed completely at the root. Failed means it never had real authority over you. Failed means the outcome was always going to be the same regardless of what they tried. Failed means you were never actually in the danger it appeared to be. You had to live through the noise of the attempt, but the attempt was never going to land where they aimed it. The flood does not mourn the dam. The flood does not pause to negotiate with the dam. The flood simply moves because that is what it is, and dams do not survive what the flood is made of. Keep moving. The crash happening right now in the lives of the people who ran this operation is not a general downturn. It is structured. It is hitting exactly the things that were used as weapons and returning them with interest, with precision, in ways that are undeniable to everyone positioned to observe it. The ones who weaponized false testimony are having their own credibility dismantled in front of the exact audience that was supposed to believe their version of you. Someone who once trusted the operation is talking, and what that person is saying is not a minor clarification, it is restructuring the entire picture. The version of you that was carefully sold to the person in the contract is now being directly contradicted by someone who was present when that version was being constructed. And that contradiction does not leave any exit. The one who used position and proximity to keep you on the outside is losing that position, not in a way that can be managed with charm or image control. The foundation of their leverage was never genuine substance, it was the appearance of substance. And when the appearance dissolves, there is nothing real underneath to fall back on. The person who believed the constructed version of you is now receiving the uncensored version of the people they chose instead. And the uncensored version is not flattering. The masks are slipping off not because anyone consciously chose to remove them, but because maintaining a mask requires energy, and every person in that circle is currently spending all of their energy managing the implosion rather than managing the performance. The crashing is not private. This is not a quiet internal reckoning that only the people involved can see. This is happening out loud in confrontations, in conversations involving people who were never supposed to know the details of what was done. The information is moving through channels that were never anticipated and cannot be shut down after the fact. And at the center of every single one of those conversations sits your name. Not the fabricated version, not the character that was created and circulated to justify what was done. You, the real version, is the reference point that keeps resurfacing, because the gap between what was actually true about you and what was claimed about you is too enormous for anyone in that collapsing world to step around. You blew a hole through the fake structure, not by doing anything explosive. You blew a hole through it by being exactly what you are. And now that the hole is there, everything fake is draining out through it, and there is no way to patch what was never solid to begin with. The shift is not coming, it is already in motion. You may not have registered the full weight of it yet, because real shifts do not always arrive with noise. Sometimes they arrive quietly, and you only recognize them clearly when you look back at the moment from slightly further ahead. The blockage is gone. What was being delayed, the increase, the aligned connections, the opportunities that carry your name on them, is moving. It is moving through the clearing that opened when everything fake was removed from the path. And what moves through a cleared channel moves with more force than it would have carried if the obstacle had never been there, because the pressure that built up behind the delay does not dissipate when the block is removed. It propels. You are about to experience the propelled version of what was always meant to reach you. New connections are forming around you right now with a quality that is genuinely different from what you have been navigating. You may already be feeling the shift in certain interactions, a different kind of ease, a different level of honesty, a sense of being actually seen rather than strategically positioned. Pay close attention to those interactions, because nothing about them is accidental. What is coming toward you has already assessed you. It already knows your value. It is already calibrated to receive you as you actually are, not the diminished version that was being circulated, not the suspicious version that was built from constructed testimony, not the incomplete version that exists in the limited understanding of someone who never fully allowed themselves to see you. The real you, the full you, the one who held integrity through every single thing that was thrown at it. The blessings that were attached to the sacred contract, the ones that were disrupted by everything that was done against it, are being rerouted right now, not eventually, now, and they are moving toward the person who honored the assignment, even when the other side did not. That person is you. Which means what was always supposed to reach you is finding its way there through a new path, and it is going to find you standing, clear and fully ready to receive it. When the clearing begins and the right things start moving toward you, a very specific temptation arrives alongside the momentum, the temptation to hold back, to test everything, to apply the suspicion that was completely warranted in the last situation to the new thing that has not earned that suspicion and does not deserve it, to look at something genuinely good and hunt for the reason it might be fake, because the last thing that looked good turned out to be a performance. This is the trap. And it is the most sophisticated trap the people who ran this operation could have left behind, because they do not even have to be present for it to work. If the aftermath of what they did makes you closed, if it makes you unable to distinguish between what is real and what is merely performing real, then the damage continues past the situation itself and reaches into your future, into the territory they were never in. Do not hand them the territory they were never in. Here is how you distinguish what is real from what is performing real. Real things do not require your suspension of disbelief. They do not need you to overlook what you are noticing, explain away what does not add up, or perform a certainty you do not actually feel. Real things hold up under your full and unguarded attention. They become more solid the longer and more clearly you look at them. They do not need you distracted, afraid, or simply grateful to be chosen. Performance, on the other hand, requires your active cooperation. It needs you to look slightly away at the right moments. It depends on you avoiding certain questions. It positions itself as the answer to a hunger and then works to keep that hunger alive, so it remains necessary to you. You know the difference now. You lived inside a performance long enough to learn its exact architecture from the inside. And that knowledge is not a wound, it is a precision filter that is actively operating on your behalf, running every new thing that enters your life through a level of discernment that most people never develop because they were never tested the way you were tested. So when something real arrives, and it is arriving, receive it with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what they are looking at, not with desperation, not with guarded suspicion, with the grounded, unshakable recognition of someone who has handled enough fake to identify the real thing clearly and without hesitation. That is the energy of someone who has been through the fire and come out refined. That energy is magnetic in a way that nothing manufactured can replicate. The right people are going to feel it immediately, because real recognizes real, and what is coming for you is real. There is a version of everything you went through that frames it as something that happened to you, something you endured and then survived. That version is the shallow read. It misses the most significant thing entirely. You were not being attacked. You were being forged. Pressure applied to the right material over a sustained period does not destroy that material. It transforms it into something that could not have existed without exactly that process. What emerged from this season is a version of you that was simply not possible before it began. Your discernment did not just survive intact, it was heightened by everything it was put through. You can read misalignment now before it becomes visible to anyone else in the space. You can sense coordinated deception because you lived inside its specific architecture long enough to understand its signature at a level most people never reach. That is not damage, that is a rare and powerful skill that will serve your purpose in ways you are only beginning to understand. Your capacity to love did not shrink. This is the part that surprises people most. Common logic says that loving deeply and having it mishandled should make a person smaller, more guarded, more defended. That is what happens to people who were not built for what you were built for. For you, the opposite occurred. The love clarified without getting smaller. It became more discerning, more directed, and more intentional. You know now what you will pour yourself into and what you will not. You know the difference between someone who is genuinely ready to receive what you carry and someone who is only performing readiness. You will not mistake one for the other again. And when you do pour, you will pour into something that can hold the full weight of everything you bring. Your purpose now carries a credibility it simply did not have before. Authority comes from lived experience, not from description. You have now lived something that gives you the ability to speak directly to a specific kind of experience, knowing your worth inside an environment that was actively working to redefine it downward, holding your integrity under sustained pressure to compromise it, carrying something real in a space that was specifically designed to make the real thing look like the problem. That experience belongs to you, and every single thing you gain from walking through it is yours permanently. The person on the other side of this is not going to return loudly. People who allowed pride to run the wrong play for this long do not announce the reversal with fanfare. They test the water first. They send a signal small enough to be deniable if you do not respond, a message passed through someone you both know, a reaction to something you put out publicly, a comment calibrated to carry just enough ambiguity to avoid direct accountability, but just enough intentionality to be felt clearly, something that communicates "I am thinking about you" without requiring the sender to put that on record. You are going to sense it before you see it clearly, that specific internal signal you have, the one you spent so long being talked out of trusting, is going to register that something has shifted in their direction before any external evidence confirms it. You do nothing urgent. You do nothing reactive. You do nothing that signals you have been sitting still and waiting. Because, chosen one, you should not have been waiting. Your life did not pause for someone who did not pause their life for you. If you have been waiting, this is the moment to release that, not because this person does not matter, but because you matter more than a position of suspended animation between what was and what might be. If and when you choose to engage, and that choice belongs entirely to you, you engage from where you are now, not from where you were when this situation began. You are at a completely different elevation. The version of you available to any future conversation is not the version that existed at the start of this. The clarity is different, the fullness is different, the groundedness is different, and everything you refuse to become under pressure is the very thing they are going to feel immediately when they come back into your orbit. What made you the most significant presence in their life was never your availability, it was your fullness. Your fullness is now something they no longer have open access to, not because you hid it, but because you stopped extending it freely to people who had not demonstrated they could hold it correctly. The power is not in whether you choose to re-engage. The power is in the fact that you are making that choice from abundance and from clarity, from the complete version of yourself, not from the part of you that needs the pain to be acknowledged before it can mean something. The pain already means something. It is validated by everything you built while the other person was busy making the wrong choices. The meaning of what you went through does not require their acknowledgement to be real. It is already real. It is already operating in your life. It is already building what comes next. The fake structure they built is not weakened. It is gone. What was standing on that foundation has collapsed. And right now the people who built it are standing in the rubble of every choice they made, staring at the space where you used to be, and understanding at full volume, in a way that cannot be rationalized away, that the thing they spent so much energy pushing out was the only real thing in the entire arrangement. That understanding is not gentle. It hits the body before the mind can manage it, and they are not managing it well. There is no preparation for the specific grief of realizing you engineered your own loss. There is no comfortable position for recognizing that the people you chose over the real thing have now turned on you using the same energy they once directed at the real thing. There is no clean exit from understanding that the flood was never trying to hurt you. It was simply going where it was always going, and you were the one who chose to build the dam. You did not build a single stone of that dam. You are the flood. The flood does not arrive in the territory it was always meant to reach and question whether it deserved to get there. It does not stand at the edge of open ground and replay what the obstacle once said about it. It does not hold itself back out of misplaced loyalty to the thing that tried to contain it. It arrives fully without apology, without hesitation. It reaches the ground it was always meant to reach, and it makes that ground rich, alive, and full of things that were waiting for exactly what it carries. That ground is your life right now. The open, cleared, unobstructed life that is ready to receive everything you are. The people arriving in it are the aligned ones. The opportunities appearing in it carry your name. The love available in it is the genuine kind, the kind that holds under your full weight instead of cracking, the kind that grows stronger the more you pour into it rather than wearing down under the pressure. Arrive there, not with one foot still turned toward what collapsed, not cautiously, as though you need someone's permission to occupy the space that belongs to you. Arrive with the full force of every experience you went through, every version of yourself you refused to become when pressure was trying to reshape you, and every moment you held your integrity when compromise would have been so much easier. They are crashing about you on everyone, because you blew a hole through everything fake they constructed, and the implosion cannot be stopped. They are losing sleep. They are replaying decisions. They are fighting with each other in conversations that keep circling back to your name, unable to steer those conversations anywhere else, because your name is the answer to every question those conversations are actually asking, and you are moving. The flood is moving, and nothing built on fake ground survives it.